We are going to dupe this beautiful high-end piece I found on Pinterest for under $5. First, we're going to need one of these little gems from Dollar Tree, some PVC pipe, and a couple little connector pieces. This is going to create the little faux faucet that we're going to put inside this piece. And don't worry, they're extremely inexpensive. You can grab these from Home Depot. There's a little stand right in the plumbing area where they have all the PVC connectors and pipes. You can grab a 2-foot piece for $1.74 or whatever size you want. I grabbed this size, and then make sure you grab the right little connector piece. I picked up these, they were 67 cents each, and I grabbed 2 of them. For legs, I'm choosing to use these tiny little snowman pieces I pick up around Christmas at Dollar Tree. Whatever paint you choose to use, make sure it works well with galvanized metal. I'm gonna use DIY's paint, and I keep a link down in the description box below if you're ever interested. Sammy over at Unicorn Dust Designs keeps it. Other options would be a chalk paint or a multi-surface paint, or you could even do a nice clear coat spray paint over this and then paint it with another paint to give you a good adhesive start. Another option that I really like to use and I have easy access to is Waverly. I'm gonna use this for the pipe piece, and with both paints I only had to do 2 coats. I like using a pouncer whenever I'm working on something that isn't wood. I feel like the paint grabs better than using a paintbrush. To each their own. This is what just works best for me, but I love how amazing chalk paints or the clay-based chalk DIY paint covers, and you don't have to spend so much time painting. You just have to wait for the dreaded drying time. I also painted the legs black so it matched the Pinterest piece, and then took a couple minutes with the little sponge that had some black on it and just distressed around. I had to take the sander though to sand off the sections where the words were so they pop through. I was thinking about painting over it, and then I'm like, I'm scared this might look messy. Honestly, it took me a couple seconds to sand it down enough that the black print on those words popped through. Since they were raised just a little bit, it worked out fine. Make sure you get all that dust off there, especially if you're going to seal over this. I used some tacky glue and hot glue to attach the legs and our PVC pipe piece. You could use E6000 and Gorilla Glue gel along with some hot glue to get that instant hold, and then you have that long lasting hold with the other glues. I added a little extra hot glue behind our faux faucet just to make sure that it didn't fall over, and let this completely dry overnight. I did use my miter saw to cut down the PVC pipe. You could absolutely use a miter box. I've done that before, and I just swung the sizes, my friends. So use your eye and make some judgment according to what you think will look best in your faucet. I have to say this is probably my favorite Pinterest piece I have ever duped. Kudos to the original maker. These little salt and pepper shakers are super darling. I wanted to recreate these, but using Dollar Tree's what I like to call Parmesan cheese shakers. Let me know in the comments below what you call these. We're gonna remove the lid because we're not gonna need that, along with the tag on the bottom. I'm choosing to go with a white color instead of the teal color in the original piece. I'm just switching it up according to what's working for me with my decor. Make sure whatever paint you're using works well with glass, and it's always a good idea to make sure your glass is clean and you wear some gloves. I'm keeping this so I'm not too worried about any issues with separation with the paint or getting fingerprints on it. And feel free to paint the bottom. I always have people ask if you paint the bottom. Paint as much of your pieces as you want, my friends. Sometimes I don't, just to save time, but it doesn't hurt to paint the bottom. And yes, seal over it if you want. You could throw some Mod Podge over this. You could spray it with a spray paint. A clear coat Rust-Oleum would work as well. I took some twine and wrapped it around this sucker a couple times, tied a little piece, and then cut off any extra, adding an adorable flower right to the side. How stunning are these mismatched ornate frames I found on Pinterest? I love that the Dollar Tree candlestick holder ties them both together for a gorgeous high-end decor piece. Obviously, we're going to need a Dollar Tree candlestick holder for this and an ornate frame. Dollar Tree has these beautiful pieces. They're little chalk boards, and I love to use them for all kinds of things. I just love the design. And they also have an oval one, but for this dupe, we're just gonna do one. For our paint color, I'm just gonna use this DIY paint in the White Swan. I'm using a pouncer to apply the paint on the candlestick, and I'm gonna do the same exact thing on our little frame. Pouncers are really good to be able to smoosh everything in those little raised sections, so this way you can get in the crevices. Paintbrush, you gotta swirl and get in there, and it can take a lot of time. I've spent some serious time painting these frames, and a pouncer is the quickest. If you want to use the chalk side of your piece, give it a light sand just to knock the sheen off, and then apply 2 coats of chalk paint to prep for your decoupage, or just flip the piece over, use the back, and apply 1 coat of chalk paint to prep for the decoupage, and avoid the sanding altogether. For the decoupage portion, we're going to be using this TDS print from my decoupage paper line to cut a little section out to put on our piece. And people, you don't have to use this paper to create your own decoupage. Use whatever works for you. I'm going to use Mod Podge as our medium and create an iron-on look. So I'm going to apply this with a fan brush and let the Mod Podge sit on here. So this way we get a really flawless finish. And I know what you're thinking, Brandy, how long do we let it sit? And that really depends on how much Mod Podge you're putting on. It could be 30 minutes, it could be 2 hours. Now it's time to bring in the iron. You can use whatever iron you want. I always have this little sucker sitting next to me, and I click the little 3 buttons and then just let it heat up. It usually takes a couple minutes and we're good to go. And while we're waiting for that to heat up, I wanted to hurry up and put some paint on this little wood sliver that we're gonna add to the top of our candle holder for some extra support for the frame. Now that everything's dry, it's time to bring in the parchment paper. Oh, look at me remembering. I remember the parchment paper. I love in the comments when people are like, did you really forget to use parchment paper when you're doing the iron on? Well, not today. Look at that. It's always a good idea to just rub your hand gently over the surface that you Mod Podge, making sure everything's dry before you start to iron on your paper. Now, my friends, future me wants to bring to your attention how I'm placing this paper on here. And then as I go to create the actual piece, let me know in the comments below if you catch it before I bring it to your attention what I'm doing wrong. In case you're wondering what the parchment paper is for, it actually serves as like a protective barrier for your paper, as well as if there is some Mod Podge sticking around anything, it's not going to cause any sticking to the iron. It will adhere to the parchment paper and protect your design and the iron itself. It really just makes everything attach a little bit more flawless. I wing things very often and forget to use the parchment paper, and as long as I'm careful, I don't have issues, but I've definitely mucked up before. When I'm all done, I like to make sure the edges are attached just like this. As long as they're on to the end, I then grab a little bit of sandpaper and I will pull the sandpaper down, which usually causes it to detach very easily from whatever it's decoupaged onto. And if you're new to decoupage or just want some more inspiration, if you click the more button underneath this video, it will open up my description box and provide a whole bunch of links. There's a playlist down there with tons of decoupage information and how-tos. This turned out so pretty. I wish I got to use it. Moving on to attaching everything together, I'm taking some tacky glue and some hot glue so we can put our little circle piece right on here. This is just going to give us more of a brace to add the frame. And now I'm going to take the frame that is all dry and put that right on top of the tacky glue and the hot glue I'm adding on here. And it was at this moment I knew I mucked up. Can you see what I'm doing wrong? Pause it real quick and let me know in the comments. Now, I've done a lot of goofy things over the years of creating content and making DIYs and decoupaging things. But this has got to be the first that I have decoupaged something completely sideways. What do y'all think? You think it's good? Think it's good? I'm gonna have to fix this. I did want to share with you real quick that a good way to bring out some of the ornate designs on the frame is to take a little bit of gilding wax, or you could take any paint color and dry brush over the raised designs. You can even do the same thing on the candle holder since it has some little sharp sections, just to kind of add in some high-end details. I think this turned out so beautiful, even though I had to pick a completely different design to pop in here, so this way it was facing the correct way. This gorgeous high-end piece I found on Pinterest was actually a video, so I had to keep pausing to try and get good pictures so we can dupe this. We're gonna need 2 of Dollar Tree's wall wood hanging decor pieces, and we're gonna just chop off the little hangers because we're not gonna need those. On the Pinterest piece, there were 2 gold frames. I wanted a thicker frame and found these wall decor pieces at Dollar Tree and just grabbed these up. I figured they would work perfectly until I realized I couldn't pop them out. So I had to think. And then I brought in the hammer, this little tiny baby hammer, so we could just tappity tap, tap, tap right on the backs of these and pop them right on out. It worked like a charm, luckily. Just brace the frame on something and you're good to go. Dollar Tree really is making some quality stuff when you can't even break something on purpose these days. I removed the hangers on both the boxes because we're not going to be needing any of them, and then grabbed the sander just to get any of the extra crusty bits that were left after hammering out the back. So this way it's smoothed on down. I did not like that you could still see the wood, and to make sure it looked just as high end as I could get it, I grabbed some white paint and went around the entire piece. I'm going to be using Dollar Tree's wallpaper in this design to wrap around our wood pieces. Keep in mind, they do not cover this entirely, and I know some of you, the little break would bother you in the design. So you make sure you get some contact paper that would cover the whole piece. Or if you want it, you could add some spackling to the holes and then sand that down and paint it up whatever color you want, or stain it up whatever color you want. I really loved this greenery and wanted to apply it onto our wood piece. And these wallpaper sheets are super easy to use. I cut the corners like this so that way once I wrapped it around, there was a little bit of overhang, and then I could trim it to make sure that there was nothing showing. I took some tacky glue and hot glue and attached little beads right over the hanger holes to create feet. Then I applied more tacky glue and hot glue to the insides where we're going to place our first shelf. I made sure not to overlap them so they don't cancel each other out. And then I grabbed the shelf and gently placed it so it overhung on the outside just a little bit, and then did the same thing on the other piece. I applied the top shelf on and I let this dry overnight to ensure that everything was glued really well together before I started using it. As always, people, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you, and until next time, bye.